Good morning, everyone. Well, just a little update now. This is in regards to Police v Murphy, where the police decided to charge John for common assault, even though it didn't meet the Attorney General's guidelines of public interest. And they did it because the Ministry of Justice put pressure on them to do it. Decided to drag a near 60-year-old man through the court system for a year and a half, only to withdraw it before the court hearing could take place, and lied to the judge. That's what the prosecutor did. She lied. She said that John admitted that there was an altercation when he damn well didn't. You guys have all seen it on the last video, because I've already posted the recordings of exactly what was said between John and the prosecutor. But moving on, this is just a little sort of addendum or add-on as far as concerned. John managed to find a little 1-minute clip of Anish.
The bailiff's been threatening me, and I've just showed him that the cars are in a totally different company, which is Judicial Finances and Central Car Company Limited, which is on there now, and he still wants to destroy my livelihood and take my cars away. The cars are not even in the company that's concerned. The companies that concerned had made an arrangement with the courts yesterday, and now he's trying to make out that these are his cars, that they belong to a company which they simply do not belong to, which is Judicial Finance Limited. These cars here all belong to Central Car Company Limited, which is a company which is trading and will cause me severe economic downturn if they were to be taken today, and I had to go to court next week and prove that he was wrong. So he's sitting here now, and etc. So we just got a problem. Thank you.
Sorry, did I say Anish? I mean Anish Bhatnagar, or whatever his name is. This is the bailiff that showed up and threatened to take some of John's vehicles, even though they weren't even registered to the company that the bailiff was there to claim monies from. So it was a complete joke. But I thought you'd like to see, or at least put a name or a face to the name of, this is Anish. This is what Anish looks like. Okay, so, and I'm going to read you his statement that he made to Scott Coleman at Glen Innes 1 month after the alleged offence took place. It states, I, Anish Bhatnagar, I'm going to stick calling him Anish. I am speaking to Detective Constable Scott Coleman about an incident on the 14th of May 2021. I am a bailiff under Section 15 of the District Courts Act 1947. This grants me powers of a bailiff, which includes the power to execute court-issued warrants, including warrants to seize property. Well, that would have been great if he had one. As we know, he had a warrant for fines, not a warrant to seize property. On the 14th of May 2021, I was at 380 Great South Road, Green Lane, to serve a warrant on Judicial Finance, which no longer exists. That's interesting. The purpose of the warrant was for fines owed by the company. At this time, I was working alone and was wearing my bailiff uniform, which includes body armour and is all clearly labelled as such. I was also wearing my mobile distress alarm, my MDA. We do not carry any other tactical appointments. In other words, they don't carry weapons. I walked to the property, spoke to a male standing in the yard. I asked him if John Murphy was in, and I wanted to speak to him. John Murphy is the director of Judicial Finance. Used to be, because it ain't around anymore, Dick. At the time of speaking to the male, I was looking at the cars on the outside of the yard. There were a couple of cars that I could see that were of interest to me as they related to the warrant. Bullshit. None of those cars belong to Judicial Finance or are any way related. You were just trying to throw a bit of weight around, Anish. The employee went to the main building and returned shortly after, stating that John was not in and I would need to call him. I called John and he told me that he'd be there in 5 minutes. He arrived in less than 5 minutes. Well done, John, for being punctual. And asked me to accompany him to his office. I went into the office and introduced myself and showed him a copy of the warrant and reason for my visit to his address. I said my name is Anish and I am a bailiff from Auckland District Court before providing him the warrant. John said that he did not have to pay that as Jones Finance Limited is no longer operational. Exactly right. He also told me that he had paid $500 to the previous bailiff, which was a mistake. This $500 was paid correctly and he had since failed to pay the remaining balance, which is why I had another warrant to get the rest of the money owed. Oh, so it was a warrant for fines then. It wasn't a warrant to seize property then. He continued to decline to pay and stated that he has no intention to pay and that I should leave the property now. He stood up and stood over me and asked me to leave. I got up out of my seat and obliged his request to leave. I told John that if he does not make payment in full, that I would have to execute the warrant by seizing the car. What car? No vehicles belong to Jones Finance, so you'd be doing an illegal seizure. I pointed out that 3 cars in his lot and told him that they are all trading as Jones Finance. Because of this, I am entitled to seize those cars under the warrant. Well, how can they be trading as Jones Finance when the company director of what was Jones Finance has already told you it's no longer operational? So, no, it's not trading. That's just your delusions, Anish. You really are talking out of your namesake. I pointed out, John told me that I cannot seize those cars and they are not under Jones Finance. Exactly right. The discussion was not going anywhere, so I turned and began to walk out of his office and leave the site for my safety. So you were asked to leave, then you turned around and decided to have an argument with John instead of obliging his request to get off the property. Is that right? And that was before you left his office. So you asked to leave, you got up out of your seat and then started bleating on that you were going to steal 3 of his cars, which weren't related to Jones Finance, and then you left. You didn't immediately get up and walk out when you were told to fuck off, did you, Anish? No. The moment I started walking out, I was between 2 cars and John came right up behind me and hit me on the top of my back. Well, how do you know that's what happened, Anish? Huh? You didn't see it. He hit me on the back, but I could feel that it was with both hands in an axe-like downward motion with the basis of his fists like hammers. See, now he's trying to include a closed fist, the intent to cause injury, you know, downward force like hammers. How do you know, Anish? You felt something, but you don't, and you didn't see anything. That's the main point. They didn't have enough to prosecute him. There wasn't enough evidence to meet the public standards. So perhaps Scott Coleman coached you as to what to make sure you put down in your statement. Who the fuck knows? The hit knocked me slightly off balance, but I was able to regather myself by taking a step forward and stumbling. Wow, what cat-like reflexes you've got there, Anish. I was very shocked at this happening, and it was very sudden. Once I gathered myself and realised what had happened, I pressed my alarm to send a message to Fort Lock that I was in need of assistance. That was supposedly at 2:30 and the cops got there at 4 o'clock, 1.5 hours. That's some really snap-on fucking emergency emergency alarm system that takes them 1.5 hours to get there to give you some support. Brilliant work, Fort Lock. So Fort Lock is our security agency who provides the service for our alarms. Yeah, in other words, they're the pricks that call the police, and the police say, oh, tough, we're not coming. I turned to John and said to him that he hit me. He initially did not say anything, but then eventually denied hitting me, because he didn't. You tripped, Anish. I left the property and went to the property next door to move away from him. Well, why couldn't you just go on the footpath where you're supposed to be, you dumb shit? I told John that I now have to call the police and wait for them. John followed me to the property and began to tell me that he could easily knock me out as he was a boxer. I was quiet, and as I did not want to get into another discussion with him, as it wasn't going to solve anything. I just told him that I had to wait for the police. I got a call from our agency who monitors the alarms, asking me if it was a false alarm or not. I then called 111 to ask for police. These guys can't type things properly. They advised me to move away from John, so I moved a few doors down near to where the traffic lights are. His employee came out to meet me initially and was smoking near me. He said to me that he does not want to get involved in anything. He did ask me what it would require to get things done. I told him that he has to make the full payment, but before that happens, I will wait for the police to come and assist. John then approached me again and started to come over to me. I moved again to the other side of the road and was again on the phone to the police. Geez, what a crybaby. John again came out to the main road and was looking for me. He was about to give up and then he saw me, so I moved again. Police eventually showed up and spoke with me. Anish, you poor victim, you poor baby. I explained to them what I was there to do, and that I was assaulted by John while trying to execute the warrant. Were you? How do you know? You didn't see anything. I pointed out John to the police, who arrived, and they walked over the road to speak with him. I went with the police but stayed back behind them while they made contact with John. Police spoke with John, and again it was explained my purpose for being there. John tried to argue with the police that the warrant was not correct and told them he would not be paying anything. He tried to walk away from the police, who followed them into his building. I stayed out in the car yard with the employee. I was speaking to my employer on the phone, telling him what was going on. After a while, police came back outside, and John, as John was in handcuffs. John told me that he would now make the payment. So in other words, the police hemmed him up, hooked him up, and put the pressure on and bullied him into paying a fine. Instead of acting impartial, they were there to support the bailiff. So much for impartiality, police. I followed John into the office to pay his fine, together with the police assisting in support, because Anish can't even, hold his cock without someone helping him. Together with police assistance and support, I watched as John paid the fines in the full through an electronic transfer and showed me the proof of this transfer. We would normally do this via a portable FPOS machine, however, because we had stuffed around for so long, great language there, Anish, the battery had gone flat on my machine. Following the payment, I spoke with police about the next actions to be taken against John. Following a discussion with police, I was advised that the police would not be charging John with the assault against me. Well, that changed after your fucking boss got involved, didn't it, Anish? I was not very happy with this decision, and after I left, I advised my employer of the decision. And then your employer, Matthew Preston, decided to go and put pressure on the police. I left that with my employer, who then contacted police directly to discuss why this was the case. In the email to police, he also outlined what other offences had been committed during the offence. No, he tried to outline incorrect legislation and say that he had obstructed somebody, except you weren't there with a warrant for arrest, were you, Anish? So no obstruction happened. This is just the Ministry of Justice throwing their weight around trying to bully the police into doing something, but the police then act like complete incompetent fuckwits, take someone through the court system for 15, 16 months and then drop the charge. Perhaps they were expecting John to waste thousands of dollars on a lawyer during that time to get everything done. That didn't happen. So, yeah. Following this email, police got in touch with me again and offered to take a formal statement and progress the matter to court by charging John with obstruction, which they didn't end up doing, turned it to common assault, which they didn't have enough evidence for, and then withdraw it after fucking someone around for 8 years and a half. Ridiculous. I confirm the truth and accuracy of the statement. Well, do you, Anish? I confirm you're a lying piece of shit. I make this statement with the knowledge that it is to be used in court proceedings. No, it ain't, because you fucking coward police decided to back down on the charge and withdraw before there was even any court proceedings. Why? Because that's what they do to abuse the process. And this was taken by SCCI 18, Scott Coleman, Detective Constable. Alright, so that's him, and here's the little baby and what he looks like.
The bailiff's been threatening me and I've just showed him that the cars are in a totally different company, which is Jordan Finances and Central Car Company Limited, which is on there now, and he still wants to destroy my livelihood and take my cars away. The cars are not even in the company that's concerned. The companies that concerned had made an arrangement with the courts yesterday, and now he's trying to make out that these are his cars, that they belong to a company which they simply do not belong to, which is Jordan Finance Limited. These cars here all belong to Central Car Company Limited, which is a company which is trading and will cause me severe economic downturn if they were to be taken today, and I had to go to court next week and prove that he was wrong. So he's sitting here now and etc. So we just got a problem. Thank you.
Have a great day, guys. See you later.